Ho ho ho, beautiful people, get ready to be amazed by the work of Mr. Daki and his friends from server 1547, because what I'm about to present you in this episode is basically their work. In other words, people, hold on to your seats. 880 battery ports. They played a lot around with the Air Force meta. And this is the Google Docs, which obviously you're gonna find in the video description, but I will gonna highly recommend you guys to at least watch a portion of this video, because you really wanna understand a lot of these details. How exactly did they test and what exactly did they want to highlight with all these numbers you are seeing here on the screen. By the way, we have 2 pages, so let's start, by the way, with the Air versus Navy. So what you're seeing here is how they tested. This marches over here all the way. These are the attacker. The defender will always gonna be the Navy meta, which is Ada, Lilia, and Meowzilla. They used indeed the hero trial. Here again, they're also explaining basically these numbers, which you are seeing pretty much everywhere, is the amount of units still left alive on the Air Force meta, because fighting the Navy, obviously the Air Force is gonna win. Also super important, it has to be mentioned, are the settings for the hero trial. So all heroes are level 5. We see here suppression at 100. We see the HP boost at 4000. We see the attack at 3600. The damage increase is 450. The damage decrease is 400. The defense or DEF is 100%, and the march size is 300. And by the way, these 4 setups here are strictly in defense, while the Navy meta will attack. So let's have a look at all these setups in order for you to understand the numbers. And obvious, first you have to look at this: 40 attacks, 60 attacks, 40, 40, 60. And by the way, on the second page, you will gonna see 80 attacks per setup, which is absolutely unbelievable. And how should you understand this page? Basically, we have to have a look at the column C, D, E, and F. All 4 of them. Why? Because you see here, the only difference in these 4 columns is simply the indestructible hero. What else is super important to mention here is the hero order. You're gonna understand this in a second, because the first hero is, in this case, Vivian. So always the bottom hero, it's on the first slot, aka the slot on the left side. Middle one is Tigress, and slot number 3, or the slot on the right side, it's basically in this case Abad. So if we have a look at these 4 setups, we are basically seeing the difference between the possible indestructible heroes. And let's have a look at all these numbers. So this, I mentioned, these are the amount of battles done. This is the average Mars performance. Basically, in other words, the amount of units still left alive, because in all these cases, obviously this setup won. And I'm super surprised actually to see in here Striker being pretty much solid, and even if the difference is absolutely super small, I would have been happy with just Striker being still very competitive. But you see how strong it is. And when you scroll all the way down, you also see for every single attack also the amount of units left. And in these cases in which they tested 40 times, there are some more rows in here. Good. So these are the rows C, D, E, and F, which are basically representing the indestructible hero difference. Let's take the next patch, which is basically G, H, E, and J, because here we're gonna see basically another offense buffing hero. In this case is Brady. Here you saw actually Tigress, same setup. And what are we seeing here? The best performance possible is actually 73.4 with Duke. But if we have a look at the same setup with Duke and Abad, but this time Tigress, we see here 73.7. So you see the difference is kind of small here. Again, keep in mind, this is attacker. And again, keep in mind the hero order. Left slot, middle slot, right slot. Okay, good. Let's move to the next 3 marches, because here we are testing the indestructible hero. But this in this case, Daki and his friends from 1547 used Asuka as the support hero, basically instead of Abad. And here we see the best performance possible is actually the highest value, or also here only 20 attacks. It's 72.8%. Meaning, in other words, we can take this setup and compare it actually with this setup over here, because the only difference is actually Abad and Asuka. And beautiful people, understand this as you like. These are what the numbers are telling us. The difference is small, but there is indeed a difference there. And obviously, to be mentioned is, in this case, Storm Shadow, the indestructible hero, actually performed better. But of course, we have Asuka in here. So yes, indeed, we're talking also about the March synergy. So we have another two columns here, column N and column O. What are we seeing in here? We see here Brady, but this time, beautiful people, it's on slot number 1, aka the left slot. Vivian's in the middle and our bot is on the left slot. And we actually have this setup in a different hero combination, because that's exactly what it is, an alternative position test. Super, super interesting work. And let's go find it. And that's basically this one over here. So what is the average here? Here we had 60 attacks. Here we had 40 attacks. So here's the average is 68.2%. And here the average is 70.2. Again, 40 attacks here, 60 there. Very interesting to see. But good, beautiful people, let's have a look at these Air Force setups when they actually defending versus same Navy setup, which is Ada, Lilia, and Meowzilla. And what are we seeing here? 20 attacks here, 40, 20, and 40. And if we have a look at the column W and X, is basically the difference between Tigers and Abad in defending. And I'm honestly surprised to see here 64.3% March performance, because that means with the level 5 exclusive skill that Tigress is definitely better. And we also have another two Marches in here, Tigress with Storm Shadow and Brady with Striker. So basically, if we take this all together, this is kind of the best setup in defense. Very, very interesting informations. But you know what, beautiful people, hold on to your pants, because we are about to see a lot of setups, but this time air versus air. And trust me, it's so worth to watch this video till the end, because this is absolutely amazing. So what are you seeing here? A lot of informations, and let me tell you exactly how to read this. So this time, Daki and his friends from 1547 said, you know what, let's test this setup versus this setup. But we want to see it from the defense and also from the offense setup perspective. So basically, we're going to have to analyze at once column B, C, D, and E. So what are we seeing? Here we see the setup with, again, slot number 1 is Striker, middle Brady, slot number 3 is Abad versus Vivian, Brady, and Abad. And in this case, this setup over here, Striker, Brady, and Abad, you see that they are attacking. And the setup with Vivian basically is defending. And in this case, Striker's setup succeeded to win 28 times, while Vivian's setup, defending, succeeded to win 12 times. And what are these numbers over here? Just in case they won, in this case, for example, Vivian, the average amount of units left on Vivian's March defending is 29.4, and here, in the cases only in which Striker's March won, the average amount of units left on that March is 30.7. Good. So, in the second tab here, which is basically column D and column E, they switched. So this time, you're going to see here, obviously, Vivian with Brady and Abad are the attacker, and this time, Striker with Brady and Abad are defending. So the other way around. In this case, Vivian's setup attacking succeeded to win 17 times, while Striker's setup in defending succeeded to win 23 times. Again, you know what this average is, just in case they won. This is the average amount of units left. Here is also for Vivian's setup. So, judging these 4 columns over here, these are what the numbers are telling. Striker and winner, which is absolutely crazy. And again, it would have been enough for me to see Striker being still very competitive, but this is what the numbers are telling you. And also you have a couple of more numbers here. So the best performance possible when they won, here is 59%. When Vivian won and she was defending, the best performance was 68%, units still left alive. And the worst performance possible when they won, Vivian had only 9% units still left alive, while Striker still had 8% units still left alive, which is basically the worst performance. It's a lot of numbers, but it's absolutely amazing. Let's jump to the second comparison. Because what we are seeing here is basically Storm Shadow versus Vivian. So again, the order is important. Storm Shadow, Brady, and Abad versus Vivian, Brady, and Abad. Here you see again, in this case, Storm Shadow's setup is the attacker, and Vivian we're gonna have to defend. So in this case, Storm Shadow's setup succeeded to win 26 times, while Vivian's setup defending succeeded to win only 14 times. Again, the average of units left alive just in case they won. And now we are switching here on the column H and on column E, because here we are seeing Vivian's setup being the attacker, while Storm Shadow has to defend. And in this case, Vivian's setup attacking succeeded to win 20 times, while Storm Shadow defending succeeded to win also 20 times. So again, if you make the average, these numbers tell you exactly this story. Storm Shadow and winner. Yeah, people, these are the data. So again, a massive amount of numbers. But good, we have some more comparison, because here let's move to Duke versus Vivian. Also super interesting setup. In this case, Duke's setup is going to be the attacker. Vivian's setup is going to be the defender. And in this case, Duke's setup succeeded to win 11 times, while Vivian's setup succeeded to win 9 times. You already see only 40 attacks. Here you see 80, 80, also 80. It's crazy. And this is the average of units still left alive, just in case these setups actually won. And then they switched, because you can see again here in this column, Vivian's setup is now the attacker, while Duke has to defend. And in this case, Vivian's setup succeeded to win 14 times, while Duke's setup defending succeeded to win just 6 times. And this is the story, what the numbers are telling. Yeah, so this is absolutely super interesting. But we have some more setups, beautiful people. So now let's have a look at the same comparison, Vivian versus Storm Shadow, but in this case we're actually going to use Tigress as an offense buffing hero, because till now we actually used Brady. So again, you see this setup is attacking, so while Storm Shadow has to defend. In this case, Vivian's setup succeeded to win 23 times, while Storm Shadow's setup defending succeeded to win 70 times. And then we switch, in this case, Storm Shadow's setup is the attacker, while Vivian's setup has to defend. In this case, Storm Shadow's setup succeeded to win 30 times, while Vivian's setup defending succeeded to win 10 times. And yeah, have a look for yourself what the numbers are saying. Storm Shadow, winner. Storm Shadow, winner. Yeah, it's absolutely crazy. But you know what? We have a few more. So let's scroll to the next possible setups. In this case, let's have a look at Duke versus Striker. And in this case, Duke's setup is the attacker, Striker's setup is the defender. In this case, Duke succeeded to win 19 attacks, while Striker defending succeeded to win 21 attacks. And here Daki and his friends from 1547 switched to Striker's setup being the attacker, Duke being the defender. Striker succeeded to win 15 times as an attacker, while Duke defending succeeded to win 5 times. And yeah, have a look for yourself. The results are absolutely super interesting. Good, but let's have a look at another setup. And this is this one. And this is a very, very important, by the way, the last one. And why is this so important? Because here we are actually comparing the Ignition Air Force setup versus the Vitality setup of the Air Force. So in this case, again, on slot number 1, Vivian, Brady, and Abad versus Vivian, this time Lin and Kai. This is basically the Vitality setup. This is obviously the Ignition setup. So when the Ignition setup was the attacker, they succeeded to win 11 times, while when the Vitality setup was defending, succeeded to win 9 times. We have a total of 40 battery ports. And then we switched, because in this case, the Vitality setup will gonna be the attacker, and they succeeded to win 9 times, while the Ignition setup had to defend and succeeded to win 11 times. So obviously, have a look at this. The Ignition setup for the Air Force is better than the Vitality setup for the Air Force. So beautiful people, do me a massive favor, because hopefully you have watched till this moment in order to realize how much work is behind this. 880 battery ports, and therefore I would like you take a moment of your time and write in the comments, A huge shout out for Mr. Daki, but also to his friends from server 1547, because together they were able to gather so much information. And honestly speaking, beautiful people, if you're a person like me and enjoys to crush these numbers, this is an extremely valuable work. And as always, beautiful people, yeah, don't forget to support what supports you back. And the best way to do so is 100% free. As you should subscribe to this channel. Obviously, if you're watching my video till the end, I still think they have a pretty solid value. And also, won't hurt to share this channel with your friends. Thank you very much for watching, and I'm gonna catch you in the next one. Ciao, ciao, ciao.